Here come the boys. Y'all ready to go swimming, baby? Come on. Give it up. Get out of that water. I tried telling y'all, it's swim lessons, baby.
Jon, thank you so much for doing this today. It's good to see you.
Dallas, good to see you. I always have time for kids from Divide County.
I love that.
Kids from Divide
I
County.
love that. And people from Divide County love you. It's been such a joy to listen to you over the years. And what's new? What's been going on?
Well, typically, there's always a lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, on Saturday, I was in Fairview, Montana, and they took on a team, Fort Benton. The head coach of Fort Benton is Monty Giese, who was a tremendous running back and wrestler at Sydney High School. He's done very well financially. He's retired now. He was one of the youngest vice president in the financial firm's history. He's coaching his son. Last year they came and got beat by Fairview, and this year they came and got beat by Fairview.
Oh.
Good game. So
Yeah.
Fairview now is a win away from a state championship. This weekend they'll be on the road. Much like when I come to Crosby all the time covering football playoffs.
Yeah.
The same people I've seen year in and year out, and you know, they might be a little grayer, a little heavier, like I am. It's just great to see. I
Yeah.
love that spirit. And yeah, Fairview's a great football town, like Crosby. These playoffs are important. And
Yep.
it's also important that Montana realizes that there is an Eastern Montana. And oh, by the way, we play football out here.
Yeah.
Just like we always want to prove that in Northwestern North Dakota. So a lot of pride.
Yeah.
Now, this Saturday, I'm going to Medicine Lake, Floyd Medicine Lake.
Yep.
They're in the six-man title game against Centerville. And they have some very good athletes. They have a young man by the name of Detman who was signed already to go play at Montana State.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is six-man.
What position is he, a quarterback?
He's a quarterback,
Okay.
yeah. And so it's much like nine-man and six-man. I've covered every man you can cover in both states.
Yeah.
And got to be a good tackler. I mean, the first time I realized that was when I covered nine-man in Divide County.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you got to be a good tackler. So that's a lot of fun. And then when I get done here, I'm going to Trenton to cover some Trenton Tigers. Their girls volleyball team is headed to state. They beat Kenmare. Well coached, great kids. And Dallas, their daughters of their dads and moms who I covered. So it's the same families. It's the Hools and Slaters and people like that. And it's much like Crosby, they're a great sports town. There will be nobody there this coming week. Nobody.
Oh, no.
And who knows? Mayville, Portland, they're a big school, but these kids play hard. They're well coached. And you know what? They took out Kenmare, who had won it 3 years in a row. So here we go.
I know.
It makes it fun. Makes it fun.
Well, listen, Jon, I mean, thank you again for doing this. This is a big deal for me. You're like a hero to me. It's always fun when Jon Cole comes to town. But
thank you.
Listen, I got a lot of questions, but one of my main questions was I really want you to take us back when a while ago you told me about you hopped on the bus and you were looking for work. Take us back, because that's a lot of people are really curious how Jon Cole found his home in Williston.
Well, thank you very much. I graduated from college in 1980, C.W. Post College, Long Island University. Now they're a Division I program. So
you were on Long Island?
Yeah, Long Island.
Wow, okay.
Yep, about 2 hours from Massachusetts.
Okay.
A good school. I graduated from there in 1980. And looking for jobs, you send out tapes and resumes. And I've always seemed to head a North Dakota thing. I got a contact from a station in Bismarck, North Dakota, KX.
Okay.
And the news director said to me, you know what, you're not quite there yet, but, we see something in you that we like. And we have a sports anchor in Bismarck by the name of Raj Higgins, who's on KFYR TV. And we think that hiring another guy from the East Coast, you guys could battle it out a little.
Yeah.
So that went on for a little while, and they hired me. The next day, I got a phone call from the GM, a man by the name of Wrighton. And he asked me I hadn't signed a contract yet. He asked me, have you committed to coming out to be with us? And I said, well, yes, I have. And he said, well, we're not going to hire you. You're from the East Coast. You'll never stay. The news director had, what the heck is he thinking? So, I mean, I was just a young kid. Everything was going my way. I was crushed. My mom was doing my clothes. I had bought an airline ticket. So, boom. So that doesn't happen for me. I continue to send out tapes and resumes in the interim. I was working at a radio station, doing overnight, was not full-time young shift, 12 to 6 overnights, Friday, Saturday, getting a lot of experience. Because when you do talk shows, if you play music, people aren't going to call up. So I was just a kid, and people in Newport, Rhode Island are asking me relationship questions and things. And, I'm saying I'm 22, and my dad's listening going, what would you know about really? You're just a kid. I said, Dad, I know, but I got to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Yep. So anyway, my twin brother, Jeffrey Cole.
You have a twin brother?
Yes.
Jeffrey Cole?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
At that time, he was working in Maryland Public Television. He's an investigative reporter. And he said, I heard about people buying a ticket, a Greyhound bus, jump on and travel the country. He said, why don't you do that? So I would watch the Twins games when the Red Sox are playing the Twins or the Brewers, and it would be in the Midwest, and cows would be eating the grass, and the people seemed so nice. I said, I think I'd like to work there. So tapes and resumes, I did my research in Broadcasting Magazine, and started out in Providence, Rhode Island, landed in Minnesota. I would make what's known as blind job calls into radio and television stations. Hey, this is who I am. This is my tape. Are you looking to hire anybody? And I went through Minnesota, had a sports audition in Duluth. The guy was very nice. They didn't hire me, but he was very nice. Said, hey, you know what you're doing. Came through Fargo. Charlie Johnson talked to me. He's now retired as an anchor, but he was here a long time. He was good to me. His sports anchor was a guy by the name of Jim Adelson. Okay. And I can remember him saying, well, he's getting up there in age, so,
Yeah.
So I continued my trip through Minot. One of my stops was Williston. I talked to a woman by the name of Sue Twite, who was on the first Lady Teton basketball team, by the way.
Oh.
And she said, I'm really impressed with your tape and things. We're upgrading things with all the oil activity. So I thought I had a good shot. I continued all the way up to Utah, made some steps in some stops in Montana. They were great people. They said, hey, we like the fact that you're getting after it. I come home because you had 30 days to travel the country. I come home. Within 2 days, I got a call from Williston. They offered me the job, and off I came. So that's how I got here. I'm a kid from the East Coast who has spent 42 years in North Dakota. That's how I literally. And a couple of years ago, I spoke at the Teton graduation, and I said, that's my story. Literally, that's my story. So that's how I got here.
What was that bus ride like?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was interesting.
Yeah.
I was in Minneapolis, and I was staying at the YMCA. Cockroaches, So they were nice, but I didn't have a lot of money to throw. Of course, I didn't tell my parents all this stuff.
Yeah.
The last thing my dad said to me, and I lost him in 2000, he grew up on a dairy farm in Massachusetts, he's a banker, and he said to me, for crying out loud, let us know where you are. This is way before, cell phones and stuff. So, I would update them.
Yeah.
And, just kept on pounding away, met some interesting people. Most people are very, very nice.
Yeah.
Charlie Johnson he looked at my tape and said, you know what? You got some things to work on, but you've got something there. And most people like the fact that you're willing to knock on doors and say, hey, this is who I am. This is who I am. And I've been lucky enough to be interviewed by a lot of media, the Bismarck Tribune and the Fargo Forum and Midco. And I say, I'm not so different from other oil workers who would come out to our region for opportunities to turn their lives around. So I always tell kids, you can sit on the sidelines or you can get after it. And that literally is how I got here.
That's awesome. Okay, so you end up in Williston. Right. Who was one of the first athletes you covered? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Oh, absolutely. Craig Christensen was a wide receiver for the Coyotes, was one of Terry Olson's first recruits.
It was Terry's first year with the Tetons?
Yeah, second.
Second year.
T.O. came my second year. Craig Christensen was one of the first really good Williston kid who came here. So yes, he was a very good player. Dean Hermits was the head coach. They had a quarterback by the name of Sam Taylor, and Dean was a great guy. We miss him, a Coyote legend. And so that was the first football team.
Wow.
And all of the Virgil Hill. Soon thereafter,
Virgil Hill.
His dad moves here because he's a plumber, and he knows he can make a good living because we got the oil boom going on here, and he knows the Williston Boxing Club under Papa Jack Wegley really got it going on, and they brought this kid in here, and what a great move for him. He was an outstanding football player. He and Randy Hansen in the same backfield, they were good.
Yeah.
So I've known him like I would know you. I knew him from the high school level, and to watch him become a world champion, and he just got the Rough Rider Award, but that's how, and I wasn't much older than him. So, when I interviewed him at the B, when he won the cruise, we said, hey, you and I were much younger kids. And it's true. I mean, just kids. But I was so lucky. I got to cover this world champion boxer. And the only reason that he moved to Williston, to Bismarck, was because Williston didn't have a facility where he could make a lot of land. He had the Bismarck Civic Center. Had they had the facilities now, he could fight at the Arc. But they don't.
Right.
So, I mean, that's why. I mean, just the litany of athletes, the Andy Lears, was in the twin system for 7 years. Brent and Brian Qualley, just saw him with the legends. I mean, James Hennessy, Mr. Basketball Award winner.
James Hennessy was one
tremendous.
of the best.
Played for
he was a lefty, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hennessy was great.
Outstanding baseball player. I think he could have got drafted. He hurt his leg stumbling on the turf in Bismarck, and he had to recover, and then he did it again here. But he was an outstanding baseball player. I can remember watching him play. This was one of those games in the spring was just his grandpa, Mr. Scadland, and me, who would be at the games. Everybody else is working.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he'd just be throwing the dandy. I mean,
Really?
Clay Eno, drafted by the Dodgers, another lefty. I see him from time to time. Unhittable.
Yeah.
I mean, just boom. I mean, I've covered some tremendous athletes here. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And Rusty Eckness.
Yeah.
Divide County,
yeah.
You guys, a female and a male Miss Basketball, Stefanowicz. Just the athletes, since 1981. And people say, well, how can you remember all this stuff? Well, it's what I do. I mean, it's like a banker in finances and things like that. But, people always ask me, and I've been through these work celebrations 40 years, and they always say, hey, what's your favorite memory and athlete? Well, Virgil Hill, number one. Number two, Sydney football. I saw him win 7 state titles in a row.
Really?
And trust me, Whitefish, Montana, Billings, they don't want to come to Sydney to play. And I'd be hauling my equipment into the locker room like usual to talk to Mike Gear and Monty Giese and people like that. And these kids from Whitefish would be looking at me, these long faces. I felt bad for them, knowing that I wasn't hauling my equipment in there to talk to them. I saw all of Western Montana come to Eastern Montana. I wasn't there for all of them. Because you remember, girls basketball was played in the fall.
Right.
So sometimes I had to do that.
Right.
But just a phenomenal parade of athletes. And the great thing is, like Monty Giese, who we were talking about previously, you go on and they remember. I was at his wedding. He married Gina Hoffman, who was a Lady Teton basketball player. They were both from Sydney. And, now I'm covering their son, Truman.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it just...
Yeah.
And, once they see you, they always remember you. You got a big hug. I didn't talk to him on Saturday. He had a special moment with his son, so I didn't want to jump in on that. But wonderful people, not just from Montana, but, North Dakota, because it's one state. If they had to set it all up again, you'd say, hey, make it one state. It'd be a lot easier for me, one time zone.
The Qualley family, that's another.
Oh, God.
That's
Yes.
That's a big one for Williston High School.
I'll tell you what, it was great to see him. Brent now has done, after 8 years, his body let him down. But I mean, 6 years with the Jets.
That's amazing.
You talk about a work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I sent some of his tapes to Nebraska for something called the Big Red Report. Really? I went to Salisbury, North Carolina, lucky enough to win Sportscaster of the Year. There's a Sportscaster and a Sports Writer of the Year. And I've been lucky enough to go there 5 times. So there's 2 representatives from every state. Well, I met a guy from Nebraska who did something called the Big Red Report. And I said, we got a kid here who he's got Nebraska written all over him. Offensive lineman U. I said, this kid is big and strong. Jamestown didn't want to take the field against him. I mean, that's a true story. Yeah. And he said, okay. So I sent him out a tape, and next thing you know, he starts getting calls in Nebraska, and then all of a sudden Iowa State and Iowa and all, because it's like the JUCO ranks. Mm-hmm. Once you have a kid who people red hot, all of a sudden Rick Pitino's on the phone and Minnesota, so he becomes the hot kid with all these recruiting, and it was my tapes. I mean,
that's
awesome.
He got,
and of course, an outstanding student, and goes to Nebraska, works his tail off, gets into the starting lineup, junior, senior year. And as he told the story at the Legacy Banquet, his coach said, you've got a shot. And he said, what do you mean shot? Shot to play in the NFL. Yeah. So he makes the Jets practice squad. I know people say, the Jets. It's the NFL. Yeah. I mean, I don't care if it's the Packers or the Jets or the Patriots. Boom. Right. So once you get in the door, he makes it, the practice squad, which means you work out with the team. There's a chance they could call you up. The next year, he makes the team. He was there for 6 years. He started a lot of games, because he was smart and he could play any position. And, in all the times that I watched him play Dallas, I only saw him get beat once. That was by a huge kid from UCLA, and he said that was somebody else who's supposed to pick the kid up. But I mean, to see him on national television, it's just, and I've been trying to push him to get his agent to send a tape to the networks. I think he'd be an outstanding analyst.
I think you're spot on with that one. Yeah,
He's
very knowledgeable.
Very smart. I love visiting with him. Very, very humble kid.
Yeah.
He should have won Mr. Basketball. I tried.
Was he close?
Yes.
Really?
He got beat out by a young man who ended up signing at Montana State and didn't last there and then struggled with Botno. So here's the thing. Media people vote on it, but they also knew that he had already signed with Nebraska. But I told the story at the banquet. He could dunk and he could knock down threes.
Yeah.
Huge, mobile kid. He loved basketball and he loved being a coyote. And Brian... same thing.
Oh, yeah, he was...
NDSU wanted him very, very badly. But he and Mr. Selvig, who's now at Dickinson State, they had this dream of they wanted to go play for the Grays, play together, and they did. And he got to the NCAA tournament his junior year, and I was at the B, and people were coming up to me like I was their dad. Hey, great to see Brian on national television. He's a great player.
Yeah.
And next 13 years, all over Europe. Now, he was a late cut Cleveland, late cut Carolina. And I think he could have played in the NBA. But remember, your contracts are not guaranteed, and he had a family. Right. So he could go to Japan or Italy where he's guaranteed. And he had a good life for himself. And all over to see him, knocking down threes and jamming against the Japanese. They're thinking, is this Godzilla? Who's this guy, Godzilla?
Yeah.
He always representing North Dakota. Mr. Basketball, one of Williston's 2 Mr. Basketball. James Hennessy is the other one.
Yep.
And I think he could have played in the NBA, but he's had a very good life. He's retired now, and I think he could still be playing, but he has younger kids now, and they said, Daddy, we miss you.
Yeah.
We miss you. And so he's going to coach their youth teams, his daughter and his little son, and they're tall, by the way, just like him, probably be future Grizzlies.
Yeah.
And he's actually married to a member of the Lady Grizz basketball team.
Oh, wow.
That's how they met in Montana. And right now, he just took a job. He took a year off. He just took a job in the health industry. 1 year, I would always get him in the summer. They would always come back to see their parents, but their parents have moved now to Missoula.
Okay.
So I have to do phoners with him and things. And 1 year I got him, and he was on a party boat, Flathead Lake. I'm thinking, dude, I'll call you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're having a good time. But those are just the people who I've met. And just, a Mr. Basketball, Mr. Football, James Hennessy. Tremendous. As I said, Divide County, Stefanowitz is, when you drive up there and they have streets named after them. It's just, but that's the Class B stuff. That's the pride of
the good stuff.
Northwestern North Dakota and Eastern Montana. And that's not Brandon Eggum from Sidney, Montana. Brandon Eggum right now is the head wrestling coach at the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I interviewed him. I got to know him through Sidney High School. He wrestled for Guy Melby. Legendary guy, won many, many championships. And he was a very good student, and he was on this exchange program academically and wrestling, and he was in Greek, and he was telling me stories, for dinner it was a pickle or something, And, but this kid had a phenomenal career at the University of Minnesota, Big Ten. And I think he could have made the U.S. Olympic team, much like a Virgil Hill, but he pulled his ankle. But he knew he had to go, So he went up against the wrestler from Iowa State who was never beaten, and he just couldn't push off, but he's a kid from Montana. He gutted it out. So I always tell these guys, hey, I got Olympic experience with Virgil Hill. Yeah. A Gormley girl was a great swimmer. UND, she almost made it too. She made it through all the regionals. So you got a lot of good kids here. Yeah. It's not just the East Coast. There's a lot of, because they have the great work ethic. And who knows? We got other kids. There's a kid by the name of Hunter Charbonneau who's redshirting at Montana State. Another guy he's a tremendous tight end. A Detman kid. A lot of it is just hanging in there, particularly for the NFL. Yep. Because as we've seen with the Vikings, these guys go down like crazy. And November's, Mr. Wentz.
Right,
another opportunity for him.
Finally gets signed.
He gets a call again. So good work ethic. They do well. They become doctors and lawyers and financial people and coaches, and that's what makes it special, that they remember you after all these years. That's what I like about it. People come up to me. Sometimes the women will look at me and say, do you remember me? women change their looks and things. Guys only might bald and get some weight, but most times you do remember them. So that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, heck yeah. You talked a little bit there about State B.
Yes.
Which was one of your big time things in your life.
Thank you.
When was your first year doing the State B?
1983. And I say that's what got me in the Hall of Fame. Statewide exposure. It's tough to get in there. But I did it since I have my book right here with me because I didn't want to get my facts. Once in a while they all run together.
Yeah.
But that got me in the Hall of Fame. I mean, statewide exposure. I mean, somebody from Grand Forks and Fargo, they don't know who Jon Cole is. They watch, Pat Sweeney, and then they watch Dan Hammer and people like that, Lee Timmerman. But that was it. In Massachusetts, they have something called the Tech Tourney, and it's all the high schools. And they come and they play the championship game with the Boston Guard. Can you imagine that? High school kids are playing where Johnny Havlicek played and Bill Russell. And as a youth, I grew up in Swansea, Massachusetts, up and through junior high, and they had tremendous basketball teams. They won the Class C title a couple times, and my parents took me to play. Took me to watch, and it's just magical. So when I got here, 1983, they called me and said, "Hey, we want you to come here and do the B." They gave me a tryout. And it just reminded me of that. But the big difference, Dallas, is that here it's on statewide television on 6 NBC stations that do well. I mean, do well ratings-wise. So in Maine, it's on PBS. And Sports Illustrated did a big thing. I mean, it's PBS, so there's not a whole lot of people who will watch it.
Right.
It's like low-level cable.
Yeah.
But not with us. So that's what helped me. I mean, that's what...
Well, you did a lot for the B, man. That was
and then if you have a local team, like if it's Crosby or Watford or Granora, I mean
Newtown, Partial won it that one year. Remember that?
Yes,
with the Pacanos.
Yes, I sure do. And they came here, and I can remember we do these town stories, which ABC for some reason has eliminated, and I don't know. It's a lot.
That was the best.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I mean it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I went to Granora and I interviewed Hunter Berg's grandmother. She was bowling. It was bowling, and people say, "How in the world did you get?" And it's bowling. They say, "Yeah, bowling," and they're thinking, "I can't believe this, Hunter. How the hell did he get Hunter Berg's grandmother?" I mean, so that's must have been. I can remember getting stuck in Mandaree in a snowstorm, and a couple of Warriors came out and got me out of there.
Really?
Oh God, yes. When Ray went, I mean, the superintendent took me all around, and just great memories. When Ray got there, I'd be up in the stands, Minot State, and just a whole sea of red. They haven't got back to since.
Right.
So I mean, it's just you always should remember those things.
Oh yeah.
Crosby and like Watford. All those good teams. I know Watford, not a particular favorite here, but I mean, all those great teams that Tom Selsley had, I felt bad for them. They could never win that. I mean, they were good, like the Buffalo Bills or the Vikings. They just, that doesn't mean they're a terrible team. They just couldn't, couldn't pull it out at the end.
Are the Bills your NFL team?
No, my Patriots. I go back to the Boston Patriots.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're having tough times now, but, when Vikings fans give me a tough time, and I cover the Vikings. I've interviewed a zillion Vikings over the years. Yeah. Tommy Kramer and Hardware Hank. Yeah. See, unlike the Twins, they come out here. They come to Northwestern North Dakota. And, they know. For example, Joe Heitkamp, talk show host, he's got season ticket holders. I mean, he's a season ticket holder. So they drive. People drive all the time to see the Vikings play. And they'll come out on caravans and, they'll come to all the hotels that we have here, which I think the Twins make a huge mistake not coming to Williston. Yeah. Look at the Babe Ruth World Series that they put on.
It's a big baseball town.
Frank Quillisi, they sent him out, once. But, I mean, because there's people from Williston who drive, and not only Williston, but Sydney and Crosby, they all drive down and to take games. So, I mean, but the Patriots, we're having a tough time now. But when Vikings fans give me a tough time, and I'm always polite, I'm respectful. They always say, that's the Patriots have 6 more Super Bowl champions than what the Vikings have. That usually, So,
well, let's go back to the B because that was a big part of your career.
Sure.
How can we get you back on there?
Well, we don't have
the best.
We don't have the contract. We being NBC. Listen to me.
That's why they.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. See, it's the contracts are bid.
Okay.
And we had it for a long, long time, and we were outbid by ABC, and they grabbed the contract, and they continue to have the contract. But with the media landscape changing, who knows where it's going to come next? Will somebody like Midco grab it?
Yeah.
They've been great to me. They did a huge story on me in January.
Oh, yeah.
Brian
I
Shawn.
watched it. That was awesome.
It's like, oh my God, it's like, wow. I mean, Brian Shawn's a friend of mine. Thorell, will Beck, will, the streaming service in mine. Who knows?
Yep.
It's a different world. But I'll proudly say this, that people stop me all the time and say, we miss you. And that, to me, not just me, but Lee Timberman too.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, Medora, airports, Denver, Minneapolis, and it makes a guy feel so good because we work very hard on that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do your homework, and if you don't, it's just... So, I miss it a lot. And I'd be very happy if we got it. Will management try to go after it again? Who knows? We're all owned by corporations. When I came here, we were owned by North Dakotans. There's very, very few family operations. And the people who owned us, the Eckbergs, were great people. But, it's just a different world.
Do you have a favorite memory from the Class B that you want to share?
Sure. I sure do.
Give me your favorite one that comes first to your mind.
It would be 01. Well, you always remember your first. That was 83. The Granora Golfers got there.
Oh, was that Hunter?
No,
that wasn't Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't be 83.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a little too early for him.
Yeah.
And what I remember about that was it was 01, North Border, way out in the middle of nowhere. People always refer to Williston like that, and it just makes me mad when people do that.
They say that about Crosby too.
And they beat Candu. Candu was heavy favorite, and crowd was singing overrated, overrated, and they pulled it off. And I talked to a kid by the name of Nathan after the ball game. I said, hey, how'd you pull this off? Well, I'll tell you what, we're from North Border, and not many people come here. They're gonna have to come and see us now because we are state champs.
Oh, that's awesome.
On paper they shouldn't have won, but guess what? They were well coached.
Yeah.
The kids knew what they had to do. They were able to deal with it, and you know how it is when everybody in the place is rooting for somebody else. Watford City knows that. When they would play in Crosby or Ray or whatever, everybody, Williston for regionals, everybody is pulling for you except for Watford City.
Yep.
So, you build off that. It's like the 69 Miracle Mets. Next thing you're there, and they, just got to beat them once. So they play that game 9-10 times, Candu probably wins it. I am sure it sticks in their craw when Candu gets together and say, how did we lose to, but they did. And it's just one of those great memories. And the kid was tremendous. And, just phenomenal. And then, certainly your first beat, I remember it very well. Hedinger won it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Hedinger won it, Mayville, Portland. John Butterfield, whose past was the head coach.
Oh, I know. Yeah, when I was coaching in New England, he was coaching down there.
Teddy
Girls.
Euchre.
Yeah.
All that crew. And every time when I see Hedinger, I think of that. Matter of fact, I covered Alexander in 9-man football playoffs. And who did they take on? Hedinger County.
Oh, wow.
I always think of that, when I drive by and stuff. And, they got it done. Kindred was there. Not Divide Counting Granora. And I remember Nate Munson, talking to Nate Munson, going up there and doing all the stories.
What was Hunter Berg like in high school?
Hunter Berg was phenomenal. We were talking about superintendents. Mr. Cliff Lee called me, and I think he's past superintendents. Hey, John, I know you do a good job keeping up on local people. We got a kid here by the name of Hunter Berg who's phenomenal. I've known him since like the 7th grade.
Really?
Need a big shot, get it. Passing, knocking everything down. Great player.
Do you think he's the best basketball player?
Yes, high school, yes. Fred Fridley was very good too.
What about Boshi, Jeff Boshi?
Didn't cover him just from afar.
Just from afar, yeah.
But, great player, certainly.
Yeah.
You don't get to Kansas without being a great player.
Yeah, true.
But, Hunter wanted to stay in North Dakota. And I can remember he said, hey, I'm a North Dakota kid,
Yeah.
I want to. And, I just, a tremendous person and player and very humble kid. And had he shot more in the title game against the old Viking tight end from Carrington, because it was two UND All-Americans that would become All-Americans, and they, but that's not who he was. It's, Michael Jordan said, hey, if I have to get 60 against the Celtics for us to win, we're going to get 60. And Hunter spread the ball around. A great player. He's the greatest high school player. I mean, I think he could have played in the NBA. I do, because I watched the NBA a long time. Just fundamentals, bing, bing, bing. Great player. You need a hoop. I mean, Terry Olson. When Terry Olson got him, they knew they were on their way. You know.
And he coached here at Williston too. So
he sure did.
Big things.
He coached at the high school and with the Tetons. He did. He helped get the girls program turned around, and for a little bit of success. And he did a good job. And then he found that he liked it, and see him all the time. Yeah. I mean, just a tremendous player. They got to the title game. People's Don Overbo. We lost him about a year ago. Yep. And I see many of Hunter's teammates who I've covered, and it's good to see. I can still remember those kids.
That's awesome.
It was a good club. I mean, it was a very good club, and to cover his teammates, and I covered Hunter's kids. Who knows? Maybe he's got a daughter coming up. Maybe she'll be a Lady Teton. So yeah, it's tough when they come through and beat Williston, though. And that's because they got that local blood. So, right. When people move from Williston, I say, don't come back here, and the Hansons don't come back here. But of course they did. Yeah. So
I think when I was around 19, I realized your greatness, if you will, because I was watching. It was my year after college, and I went to the State B, and Beulah was in the state championship. And after the game was over, you grabbed, who is a friend of mine now, Cody Nelson. Sure. And you wrapped your arm around each other, and it was like a special moment. And I'm like, not every news reporter will do that. And that was just the way you captured that in the questions you asked. And Cody was so excited, and they just won the state championship. And the way you just captured the moment that, I mean, he still talks about it to this day. What goes through your mind, John, that you just try to capture those special moments? Do you realize, I got to grab this guy and here's the questions, or do you just ask what comes to your mind?
It's a feel. It's just a feel. I mean, Nathan, the kid from Border Central, you are a state champion. I mean, it's just a feel. That's an easy tournament because it's such a flow, and you're there. And, sometimes in the Class A level, it can get a little boring if, the days when Fargo South was good and they'd be blowing somebody out. And it's never like that at the B because, everybody picks a side. It's like politics. And everybody, if your team's not there, everybody, for example, let's say Ray doesn't get there. Well, I know Arlie Larson's going to be there with his kids, and they're going to pick a side. Mm-hmm. And Barry Hagan, he's going to pick a side, and Bob Turcotte, they're going to pick a side. And so that's how it goes. Yeah. Usually it's East versus West. And they don't want to lose to one of those teams in the East. They don't even know where we are. It's just, we don't think we think the state ends in Valley City. And the comments that I've got from people from Fargo, all the baseball that I've done, I've never been out here before. And I don't know Williston had these facilities. And, when they had the ARC, when Williston hosted the WDA, I can't believe Williston has a facility. It's like, hello. And it's the rivalry, and every state has it. My brother lives in Maine, same thing, East versus West. So when you're a Western team and you can, I'm hoping Trenton has a great ride and they win it, and then they can have a big parade. And that's one of the great things about living in Williston is, they have these parades for the kids and they put them on the Williston cross country program has been phenomenal. That's one of the highlights too. I mean, Clint Chamberlain, and he's passed it along, and Shane Wallstrom and Chase Gregory, they won 3 in a row and 2 in a row. They didn't win it this year, but they were close again. Yep. I mean, and if you drive around Williston over the years, you've seen Virgil Hill out running. You've seen Tucker Pudwell, who was from Mandan, but he came here. Mark Strickland, who almost made the U.S. Olympic boxing team with Hill. You saw those people running. Then you saw the Heens and the Immelses. I mean, and the success that they've had. Rob Heem was a national champion. He won the national championship, Foot Locker. Mm-hmm. I remember that like it was yesterday. He was in our Legends class last year. Man, I can remember coming back. Phil Jackson Fieldhouse was packed with people. National champ, Dallas. Yeah. National champ. I mean, a kid from Williston. So, and now you see these people today. They run year-round. Bad weather, good weather. So am I surprised that they won 3 in a row and 2 in a row? Right. No, not at all. And they go on and do well on the national scene. Yeah. I mean, Colton Kringen, who's a great swimmer, I was just doing my homework on him. He's at South Dakota State. He's already had a couple of first place. Just a kid. Yep. I mean, and he decided to go out for cross country because he knew it would help him with swimming. And he was one of the 2 kids for 2 years who helped them. See, that's what's hurt Williston is these kids become specialists. Don't become a specialist. Class B kids play year round.
I 100% agree.
I mean,
100%.
Max Heen, for example. Alexander had a great year with them in football, and they put 3 kids on the All-State team. And I saw him drive back and forth from Alexander to Williston to play ball for the Keybirds. Great player. Did a piece for them. Hey, I love being out here. These guys are my friends. Was I surprised when he got the big hit against Minot? Well, no, not at all. Then I saw him in the playoffs. He's making hit after stop. He caught a touchdown pass with 5 seconds to go. So, it's a game, same old game.
Talking a little bit about the Phil Jackson Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions. I just asked Barry Hagan what's it like about this. Hank Bijou from Dickinson State. But this question, John, I don't get to ask many people, but I get to ask you because it's the Jon Cole Gymnasium.
Unbelievable.
What's it like to watch a basketball game in a gym named after you?
And to cover things there, it's unbelievable. I mean, when they say, welcome to the Jon Cole, and I always give them a hand pump, it's like, I can't believe this. I mean, I just, this past June, I was inducted into my college radio station's Hall of Fame. And that's what people wanted to know. They say, my God, you have a gym named after you? I mean, it's just, I thank Tate Cymbaluk and the school board. And there's a picture in the Williston Herald where Tate came in and he told me, and there was a photographer there. And I have my hands to my head saying, what? I mean, not in a zillion years. I mean, just what a compliment. I mean, you're covering things and, yeah, we're going to go, it's in your gym, or, history to be made. And Jon Cole Gymnasium, my relatives are like, oh, my God. I mean, so it's unbelievable, special thing, something I never, ever, ever thought would ever happen to me. But it also goes to show that, as I tell kids, that if you get after it and, I didn't become a sportscaster of a gym named after me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In North Dakota, because it's such a special thing, people say, you got to be a legend if they name a gym after you. You know what I mean? It's like,
It's
you
true.
didn't think about, you think about the Don Hansons and people like that, and Eddie Byer, been around a long time, Hunter Berg, It's just unbelievably special. And, it's nice because I'm still alive and kicking. And, I mean, usually it's, war veterans and people like that who don't come back, and it's just unbelievable. My dad was a product of the World War II generation. He grew up on a dairy farm in central Massachusetts, had to work hard his whole life and became a banker and successful. And, he wasn't a big hugger as a dad. He'd tell you what he thought, and he'd do anything for you. And I told my mom, and when I called her up, I lost my mom. In 2022, she was 95.
Oh,
and I would
wow.
call her 2 times a week, and I'd say, Mom, they're going to name the gym after me. Dead silence. Mom, they're going to name... All of a sudden, she says, get out. I said, no, get out. So just dead silence. And she says, your father would have been so proud of you. Of course, he probably wouldn't have said it, but,
Right.
Anyway, so it's just... my twin brother came. I'll never forget that day as long as I live. Of course, there was a storm. My twin brother came out, and that was great. And Lee Timmerman and Chuck Bartholomew and all these people who I had worked with, unbeknownst to me. I mean, just a phenomenal day.
Yeah.
They were playing Bismarck. Bismarck's waiting to play, and you don't want to talk too long. But, Kelly Beekler came back, who I anchored with, and all these people who, been a part of my life for a long time. So it's unbelievable. I mean, as someone who does interviews, and yes, you're asking all the questions, and it's just, Joel Heitkamp did a story, hey, and the Williston Herald, and it's
amazing.
It's one of those things that's hard to believe,
Yeah.
but good people here, and they passed it along. So
That's
unbelievable.
Well, John, we've been going at this for 40 minutes already. One question I asked everybody on Swim Lessons is it's a podcast about overcoming the tough times. Obviously, everything isn't always perfect. What's something that Jon Cole says to himself when his back's against the wall and he's looking to overcome something tough?
Well, I think that you control what you can control. And that's one of the things that I learned through athletics. My dad always brought me up and he'd say, don't worry that someone else is doing more work than you are, or he's doing more than you are, or she. You just make sure that you do the best possible job that you can do. And that's what I've always tried to remember. I can't control budget cuts from corporations and this people or that. I try to fight for the Mondeck region as often as I can. I can't control management decisions and things. The only thing I can control is what I do, which is why I go to Alexander, which is why I go to Medicine Lake and Crosby, and no one tells me I have to do that, but that's obvious. You have a team playing for the championship in your region and you can't get there? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be at everything. You just do the best job you possibly can. So, my strength comes from my parents, and my twin brother has been great to me. He's had a great career in Philadelphia and Hartford, Connecticut. I mean, he's always been there for me, helped me put together a television tape, and I have a good college mentor named Rich Kahn who always helps me, and those are the tough things. But I lost my dad, and now I've lost my mom, but I knew here I had something that I loved, you know what I'm saying? And I could jump right back in and start in and, jump right back in. So that took me away from any feelings that I had, grieving and that type of a thing, because I know that the people here appreciate me.
Yeah.
They do. And they know that I do the best job that I possibly can. You're not going to be perfect every day. You might get a kid's name wrong.
Right.
There's no pronunciation guides in high school, so you're doing the best. And Norwegian people always pronounce their names different than everybody else.
Yep.
There's no Smith and Joneses. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you just do the possible best you can. I've met so many great people: the Terry Olsons, the Penny Slagos, Phil Raybons, Leon Olsons. And it's tough when they either move on or pass. So. Barry Hagan, obviously, and the great people you got in Crosby, good people, Coach Brown and Nelson, and it's not easy to coach.
Right.
It's not, everybody thinks it is. It's not easy to coach. It's not easy to coach teams when they're not having a lot of success. I always try to look at Williston. I mean, they struggled in a lot of sports, and you just try to be positive, and they're just kids. They're just kids. That's what you have to try to remember. So. But been very lucky. I'm just happy that they refer to me as a sportscaster, because that's always what I wanted to do. So,
well, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
Thanks.
You're the man, Jon. I appreciate your time today, and thank you. And please stick around and don't retire quite yet. We love you too much.
All right, Dallas. Thanks a lot. Go Maroons.
Go Maroons. All right, that's Rev Jon Cole. Thanks, everybody.